Today our guest speaker is Nick Addison, the CEO of Adelaide Oval Stadium Management Authority. Nick has extensive experience across a variety of roles with sports, marketing and entertainment business. Nick's previous role was the Executive General Manager of Commercial Operations at the Victorian Racing Club that operates the Flemington Racecourse, the home of the Melbourne Cup. And he oversaw all commercial revenue streams and strategic planning for the annual Melbourne Cup Carnival, negotiations of the naming rights and domestic media rights. He joined the Adelaide Oval Stadium Authority as a CEO in June of last year, overseeing this world-class iconic Adelaide Oval, where the Rotary Club of Adelaide has proudly held its weekly meeting since the 5th of September 1984. Rotarians and friends, to hear more about Nick's vision of this wonderful oval that we all call home, please welcome our speaker, Nick Addison.
Thanks for that very kind welcome. Thank you for inviting me along here today. Rajiv, thank you for the very kind words and the honorary membership. It's something that's a great privilege, so thank you for that. And thank you for your support of Adelaide Oval more widely. As we said, there's been a huge number of meetings held here on a weekly basis, and we greatly value the partnership. So thank you for your support. And just picking up on the history, and it was fantastic to see that presentation and the history. And history is something that I have a great love of, and I particularly love of sport and history. And if you can marry those two, then I'm a pretty happy person. But almost 5,000 meetings is incredible, and I love the fact that is something that is a source of pride, because it's mentioned, I imagine, at the start of every meeting, which is a fantastic thing to have. There would be many organisations that would be incredibly envious of what has been created here. So I think it's something that everybody should be incredibly proud of. So thank you for being here. Thanks also to the Adelaide Oval team for helping to make the experience today, hopefully an enjoyable experience for you. I'm here to have a bit of a chat about the continuing the legacy of Adelaide Oval, this incredible place that just over, or almost 11 months ago, I sort of inherited the CEO role, which is, frankly, one of the best offices you can possibly have when you walk into work each day. I was told when I was appointed into the role that you would never get sick of it, and sometimes those comments can just be comments at the time. But I can genuinely say, 11 months in, there's not a hope in this world that I'll get sick of walking into this place and walking into work each day. So I just thought I'd chat through a couple of things in terms of my role, but also importantly Adelaide Oval and the significance of the venue and the businesses that sit around it. It's obviously one of the world's most iconic venues, and that's due to its history. As was mentioned in the introduction, I had almost 13 years working at Flemington Racecourse on the Melbourne Cup Carnival, and that's almost 160 years old. And obviously Adelaide Oval is well over 150 years old. So that opportunity to work with history is an amazing opportunity that I've got, and something that I love. I'm a big one that history is an asset, not a hindrance. Often in business, people will look to history and look at it as a constraint or shackles that people can't break out of. I go the other way. Histories can be, if used in the right way, is a great competitive advantage, and it's something to be embraced and leveraged as you move forward. So we've certainly got a lot of history here. Most of you will know the redevelopment was transformational for South Australia and Adelaide, and I know from anecdotes and being a sports buff that there was quite a bit of history, quite a bit of objection to the redevelopment at the time, but I think everyone would agree that we're all very fortunate that those that were directly involved in those decision making and those negotiations had the foresight to create what we're in today, because it has been transformational. And also, what's important for us to continue to nurture as sort of custodians of the asset is that Adelaide Oval transcends sports and entertainment. And the phrase that's been used is that it's South Australia's beacon to the world. And that's something that we take incredibly seriously in terms of the obligation that we've got to continue the legacy into the future. So call it the last 12 months, which has sort of been my first 12 months. As I said, I'm closing in on 12 months. It's been enormous from an event perspective. And in terms of bouncing back from COVID, we've had a really, really busy 12 months, which has been a fantastic position to be in. And I've just listed some of the events that we've hosted here in terms of the ICC T20 Cricket World Cup was here last year. We had Guns N' Roses play here. We had the Australian Test match against the West Indies in early December. Of course, we had the BBL T20 series through December and January. Ed Sheeran was here in March along with 63,000 people, and that was a very proud night for South Australia. And of course, the AFL kicked off on the 18th of March. So a pretty hectic schedule there, and this venue performs really well when it's put under some strain, and we really sweat the asset in terms of staging as many things here that we possibly can. Now, there was a little bit of a challenge in all of that, because if you had to follow the dates, we had a turnaround challenge. And what we call, how we phrase that is when we need to move from event to event. And following the Ed Sheeran event, which was on Tuesday the 7th of March, and that's an important date to recall. As I said, we had just over 63,000 people out here, probably 10,000 of which, along with tons and tons of stage infrastructure, were out on the oval. That causes a few issues to the playing surface. So we had around 10 days from Tuesday the 7th of March before round one of the AFL season on the 18th of March. And I've just got a bit of a video here, a time-lapse video, which talks to the effort and focus that the grounds team put into repairing the turf. And this was done over the course of, whilst we had sort of a 10-day gap, the real key work is done sort of over a 5 or 6 day period where they're working day, the team is working day and night to replace about 60% of the oval surface of the turf to get it ready to be playable 10 days later for round one of Port Adelaide and Brisbane on Saturday the 18th of March, and we had 34,000 people here. So that turnaround challenge is significant, and we were really pleased not only to get the oval into appropriate shape, but also to have incredibly positive feedback from the competing teams as well. And it has been the case ever since that the surface not only looks great, but also played extremely well, which is really important. A couple of other highlights, obviously Gather Round, and thanks to the great work of a whole range of people, including the South Australian community, we've secured that asset through to 2026. And it was a raging success with some transformational outcomes. There are almost 200,000 tickets sold, 60,000 of which were visitors from interstate to South Australia that wouldn't have come had it not been for Gather Round. There was incredible strategic alignment amongst key stakeholders from very early in the piece to present a united front of Team South Australia to the AFL to be able to secure that event. And that's a real credit to everyone through the South Australian government, to the Crows, to Port, to the Sandful, to the tourism authorities, and everybody involved around it, because we really did present a united front, which certainly did happen to steal the Gather Round away from another state just north of Victoria and south of Queensland, that we've now secured this through putting on a fantastic event and all those stakeholders working together. We've secured that event for the state for the next 3 years. There was transformational outcomes for a lot of entities, and as a Victorian, I can tell you that the profile and the awareness of what is here in South Australia is now far greater. particularly following Gather Round, but also following Live Golf. And again, credit to the South Australian Government for being prepared to invest in these events that not only bring tourists, but raise the awareness of what we've got here in South Australia. And as a Victorian that's come in, what is here in South Australia is infinitely greater than what the Eastern Seaboard is aware of what is here. So if we can continue to invest in initiatives that will bring people here to South Australia to sample what a fantastic environment it is, then it's a big benefit for us. There will also be some legacy benefit out of that as well. It won't just be on the weekend, the given Gather Round weekend for the next 3 years. People are thinking about travelling to South Australia now because of the awareness that Gather Round has driven. So certainly in our world, we're doing a lot of work working closely with the AFL, that particularly when Victorian clubs play here in Adelaide, we encourage members of those clubs or supporters of those clubs that if they're going to travel anywhere to watch their team play, the one experience you cannot miss is Adelaide and Adelaide Oval. So we've got a great opportunity to be able to do that moving into the future. So if the last 12 months was significant, the next 12 months promises to potentially be even bigger. We've obviously got the remainder of the 2023 AFL season to play out, and 2 local teams are going pretty well, which is a great thing for our business. We're welcoming the NRL State of Origin Game 1 here later this month, which will be here on the last Wednesday in May, which will be a fantastic event and again will drive visitation from the Eastern Seaboard. We're likely to have a test match versus the West Indies later in the cricket season here. We'll have the BBL again. We've got a couple of concert performers that we're working on for February 2024. Pink is confirmed to play here in February 2024, and there is another international superstar that we're working on at the moment that I'm hoping to be able to confirm in the next month or so. Will also perform here in February next year. And then, of course, on top of all that, we'll welcome, and we'll do it all again, the AFL Gather Round again in April next year. So a couple of key projects of note, I guess, and just one that I thought would be interesting as well is that we've got a major project in play at the moment, which is upgrading our light tower globes. Our light towers currently work off older traditional HID globes, they're called. We're looking to upgrade all 4 towers to LED globes, and there's a number of reasons for that. The infrastructure that we're currently using is becoming antiquated. It's becoming problematic from a performance perspective, and there's a whole lot of risk that does exist around the current light tower globes. So upgrading to LED will certainly ensure that we minimise that risk and also enable us to move forward in terms of the experiences and the entertainment that we can offer, which is consistent with modern stadiums this year. So to give you some context, that's sort of around a $5 million project that we need to find a window which will likely be between the completion of the football season this year and the commencement of the cricket season, where it takes about 8 weeks to upgrade each and every light globe in the towers that we've got there at the moment. So that is a significant project for us. So our vision here at Adelaide Oval, and I thought I would just share a bit of insight to give you a sense of where we want to head over the next sort of 3 to 5 years. Our vision is to be Australia's most iconic provider of world-class, unmissable experiences for all. So there's a couple of key words in there, particularly iconic and particularly world-class experiences. That's what we aspire to be able to do here, and whether that's through the Oval experience, whether it's through function events like this, whether it's through our 138-room Oval Hotel or our roof climb business, or whatever the case may be, we want to aspire to be iconic and to deliver world-class and unmissable experiences for all. So to try and put that into some context, we've listed some examples of what we consider to be iconic, world-class, unmissable experience providers in Australia. And when you do think about it, things like Ayers Rock, like the Great Barrier Reef, like the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge, and also maybe the Melburnian coming out of me, the MCG and the Melbourne Olympic Park precinct. They're sort of some examples of iconic experience providers. But that's where we aspire to be here at Adelaide Oval. And there'll be varying degrees of views. I've had some people say, well, I think you're there already and you should be on that slide. I've had some people say, we'll never make it. But the idea is that we need to be bold and we need to be aspirational, and we certainly think we're well on the way to sitting comfortably on this slide. So I won't speak through everything that's on this page, but I just thought I'd give you a bit of a quick sense of our strategic plan priorities and where are our key focus areas, and there's 5 of them. And starting from the top, our people. It starts with our people, and we need to invest in our people and ensure we've got the best expertise, and we try and make this, frankly, one of the best places to work, so that when people do turn up, they not only love working with the fantastic assets that we've got, they enjoy the environment that they work in. So that certainly is a core focus for me. I touched on our experiences before and wanting to develop world-class and unmissable experiences. So as I said, whether you're enjoying function and events here, staying in our hotel, coming here for a game of football or cricket or a concert, or doing the roof climb experience, we want your experience to be world-class and we want it to be unmissable, because you'll go off and talk to people, particularly whether it be around Australia or globally, about how great an experience it is. And any trip to Australia isn't complete unless you spend some time at Adelaide Oval. Social responsibility is a rapidly emerging space, and it's an area that we do need to prioritise as a business, because there are a number of touch points for us across our business where we need to be very conscious of our social licence, whether it be environmentally, whether it be socially, whether it be from a governance perspective. We're certainly focused on that, and we prioritise it enough to be a key pillar of our strategic plan. Technology is also rapidly emerging for us and is becoming a great enabler for us to ensure that we're delivering those world-class experiences. And as an example, we've trialled over the last 3 or 4 weeks of the football season a range of new technology in our retail food outlets, which allows people to have a similar experience to what you may have in the supermarket, where a lot of the checkout experience is automated. And we're finding that that's playing a key role in speeding up transaction speed and speed of service. So ultimately our goal is to remove the queues that are common at major sporting events, because to an extent we compete with the couch these days, and that may sound a bit silly, but particularly through COVID, people have got very comfortable watching sports and entertainment on the couch, because there's no queue at the fridge at home, there's no queue at the bathroom, you control the heating and the cooling, whereas all of that can be a little bit different in a stadium. So I work with our people to be able to say, well, we compete with the couch, because that's sort of the target that we've got to try and get to. And growth ultimately is a key focus for us and a key consideration, because we are in the infrastructure business, and for those that are in the infrastructure business, you'll know that there's never, the list of things to spend money on is never empty. Things break continually. Just the money we need to invest to fix things and keep up to standard is incredible, and it is growing all the time. So we need to continue to find ways to innovate and drive the next round of transformational growth, which I think the team that's gone before me has done an amazing job to diversify what is here at Adelaide Oval. As I said, whether it be the hotel, the roof climb, a lot of sort of non-core assets that have been very beneficial and distributed returns to our stakeholders, being SACA, the South Australian Cricket Association, and also football, the South Australian National Football League. So all the monies that are distributed is going into cricket and football in the community, which is really important. Just a couple of things on our growth markets. So again, as an outsider that's come in, and that point earlier around the opportunity for us to grow the awareness, particularly around Australia and in certain parts of the world, about how good South Australia is and what we have here. So certainly in terms of the red there, I've got in South Australia, we've got high awareness and high existing value that we extract from the South Australian market, which is tremendous. But certainly on the eastern seaboard of Australia and the western seaboard as well to an extent, but certainly the eastern seaboard, we actually have low awareness of what our offerings are. But whilst that might be disappointing on one hand, it talks to enormous opportunity. And that's why things like Gather Round and Live Golf and so forth are so important to us, to continue to raise the awareness of the offerings that we've got here, because it does work. And again, as a Victorian, I've seen firsthand the major event strategy be so beneficial for the Victorian economy and the economic stimulus that it generates. So I'm very pleased that we've got a government over here that is following a similar path. I thought I'd close just with, it's one thing to have a strategy and to talk about all the events and, what's coming up and so forth, but we wanted to, as part of the strategy, sort of go a step further to how do we want people that work for Adelaide Oval and come and put in so much time and effort, how do we want people to think? And how do we want them to convert that strategy into everything that they do day to day? And one of the things that stands out to me is that has been done here magnificently over 150 odd years, but certainly recently with the redevelopment, is the marriage of old and new. The history of this site and this ground is incredible, but it's also evolved. And you only need to look out behind us now to see, some of that history with the scoreboard and the hill and so forth has been preserved, and it's so important that it's been preserved because it would have been so easy to enclose it. Like most stadiums around the world, it would have been so tempting just to enclose it, but the vision the team had to hold off on that and retain it is vitally important and is our key differentiator now in market. But that didn't hold them back from innovating in other areas. And as I said, whether it's the hotel, whether it's the rest of the ground and the experiences of rooms like this, they really look to world's best practice to be able to innovate and deliver the world, the best experience possible. So that marriage of old and new is significant. And how do you sort of capture that? And what we've tried to do is sort of capture that in a really brief saying, which, the deep pride, passion and respect for our history is captured by local heart. And that's what drives the northern end and the scoreboard and the history that is, so deep here. But we must innovate and we must stay up to date with world's best practice. And that's where we adopt a global pulse, that we've got our finger on the pulse globally of what is happening to be able to ensure that we're not missing any opportunity to be able to aspire to be world class and deliver as good a experience as we possibly can. So that transfers through to the Adelaide Oval way of thinking, which is local heart, global pulse. And we try and work that into our team to be able to, whenever they're in situations where they're trying to make decisions about what they do, if you're in a 50-50 situation, try and apply the local heart, global pulse to whatever you're doing, and you'll probably make the right decision. So in closing, thank you for your support. The relationship is greatly valued, and I look forward to seeing you back at the Oval very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I see some similarities between Rotary about embracing our history, but also our future. And just hearing your inspiring talk about the vision of what's happening here and bringing new people into South Australia is very encouraging about kicking COVID to the curb, which is something we all want to see. Now we've got time for a couple of questions, and we have someone very enthusiastic already with the mic, so I'll let you come in here.
Thanks, Nick. A wonderful presentation. We are very proud to be here as well. It's a very proud thing for us to come here every Wednesday, and we've been doing it for many, many years, and long may it continue. Just one thought, though, the catering side. You didn't mention a core business, or as a core business, but are you still doing that out externally, like Monarto Zoo, for example? Are you still doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was on, and you're right, it was remiss of me not to mention that. It was on one of our slides, but we provide food and beverage services to Monarto Safari Park, which I think is an amazing place. It's the biggest safari park in the world outside Africa. And again, I know a lot of people in Australia don't know about it, so there's a fantastic opportunity there for us. We're also involved in a bar and restaurant on the other side of the river in terms of the tap house, just near the festival centre. And we're always actively looking at different opportunities that exist in that space. So one of the things that I think they've done very well here is insourcing a lot of really vital activities such as our food and beverage throughout the whole venue. We also insource management of the hotel as well. And that just gives us the ability to control the experience and control our brand, because it's our brand on it. So whenever something is your brand, I think you should have a fair say in how something runs. So, yeah, it's a very important part of our business.
Thank you, Nick. This is more a comment than a question. About 9 months ago, I had a phone call from a fellow Rotarian from Canberra. He said, Rob, couple of years ago I did a tour of the Adelaide Oval. I said, yes. He said, I'm organising for the Rotary Fellowship of Recreational Vehicles to come to Adelaide in May next year, which is a fortnight's time. He said, do you think I could organise for all their members to do a tour of the Oval? I said, oh yeah, that's no problem. So the end result is, because he really enjoyed his tour, and he thought, because these are half international Rotarians and half interstate Rotarians, he's bringing 40 people here today fortnight to do a tour of the Adelaide Oval and then to stay here for lunch with our Rotary Club.
Fantastic.
So that's the sort of impression that some people get particularly after they've done the tour of the Oval. So much in it.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm thrilled to hear it, because we pride ourselves on making sure every touch point leads to that experience. So thank you.
One more question? Lauren, I can't believe you haven't got your hand up.
Sorry. One question about you had this kind of aspiration of being kind of like an icon or global icon kind of thing. So on the sports side, basically this is a ground for two sports, one that's basically Australia only, and one that's effectively India and a couple countries in Europe maybe. So is there any kind of like aspiration, any kind of like intention or kind of like plans to figure out, can you attract sports that basically have a different reach, that not just covering essentially the Commonwealth and then nothing else?
Yeah, in answer to your question, yes. Unfortunately, again, referencing the state government that we've got a government with an appetite to be hungry in this space. So there are some things behind the scenes that is focused on trying to at least be a player in that space, to at least be at the table, at least be considered. One of the challenges that we do still encounter currently, particularly in the concert space, is promoters' reluctance to come to Adelaide. And in some cases, we will see performers fly over us from Melbourne to Perth and refuse to stop here. So, yes, the hunger is there. Our challenge is to be able to convince promoters, governing bodies, sports on a global scale that this is a place to come to.
Just got David Egan snuck in with his last question.
That's all right.
Thanks, Goody. Thanks, Nick. What do you say to, I know you're a Victorian, what do you say to those Victorians and Western Australians that say your stadium looks like a toilet seat, and why don't you fill out that other end where all those trees are?
Do you want the diplomatic answer, or do you want the...
I'd like to hear the truth.
He wants an answer.
Because well, there's a couple of things that whilst I'm in this job, I'm South Australian. So that's really important to have that and to think like that. That won't mean I won't bring the experience and so forth from other parts, but you've got to be fiercely passionate about what you do. I would say to them that any stadium that has a traditional seating bowl can be grouped together. As passionate as I am about the MCG and as special as it is with 100,000 people in it, it's a seating bowl, and it's a concrete seating bowl that perhaps doesn't have the character as to what this place has. So that's the diplomatic response.
Wait, I'll swap you. Thank you so much, and thank you for the honour of becoming our latest honorary Rotarian. As a certificate of appreciation, we just have a little certificate here for you, just to let you know that the funds raised today go to our community projects. And something else that's very iconic, waiting for the photograph, is our little rotary bear made by some of Rotarians' wives.
Fantastic.
I'm sure they're numbered somewhere inside here. Be quite a vintage item if you hang on to it over time. That's only for this year in Rajiv's Rotary year. So thank you very much.